In this video, we are breaking down every time Eric Cartman got instant karma on South Park. Every scheme that blew up in his face. Every moment the universe decided enough was enough. Let's get into it. If you have watched even a single episode of South Park, you already know who Eric Cartman is. He is a 9-year-old kid living in the small fictional mountain town of South Park, Colorado. He has been on television since August 13th, 1997, when the very first episode aired on Comedy Central. That was almost 3 decades ago. Since then, South Park has produced 28 seasons and 338 episodes. And across every single one of those seasons, Eric Cartman has been doing terrible things to people. He is not just a bully, he is not just a troublemaker. Cartman is widely considered one of the most evil characters in all of television history, animated or otherwise. He has committed hate crimes. He has manipulated his friends, his mother, and complete strangers. He has exploited legal systems, medical conditions, and religious beliefs for personal gain. He has organized cult movements. He has framed innocent people for crimes they did not commit. And in one case that we will get to later in this video, he killed someone's parents, chopped them up, cooked them into a bowl of chili, and fed them to their own son. And he was proud of it. But here's the thing about Eric Cartman. For all the horrible things he has done over nearly 3 decades of television, the universe has a way of hitting back. Sometimes it hits back fast, sometimes it takes years. But when karma finally catches up to Cartman, it is some of the most satisfying television you will ever watch. Sometimes it is his friends who deliver the karma, Kyle standing up to him, Stan calling him out, Kenny just watching in disbelief. Sometimes it is a complete stranger who has no idea what they are dealing with. Sometimes it is the adults in South Park who finally lose their patience. And sometimes, the most satisfying times of all, it is the consequences of Cartman's own actions catching up to him in ways he never anticipated and cannot escape from. In this video, we're going to walk through every major moment where Cartman got exactly what he deserved. From getting beaten into the ground on the school playground to losing a $1 million theme park because of his own greed. From being tricked into thinking he is dead to discovering that he accidentally killed his own biological father. From getting trained like a dog by Caesar Millan to having his most embarrassing secrets nearly broadcast on national television. These are the moments that South Park fans live for, the moments that make sitting through all of Cartman's cruelty worth it, the moments where the universe finally looks at this kid and says that is enough. So let us start with one of the most satisfying beatdowns in the entire history of the show, starting it off with the time Wendy beat Cartman into the ground in front of the entire school. This happened in Season 12, Episode 9, an episode called Breast Cancer Show Ever. It aired in 2008, and it remains one of the most requested and rewatched Cartman karma moments in the entire series. The episode begins in Mr. Garrison's classroom. Wendy is standing at the front of the class giving a presentation about breast cancer awareness. This is a topic Wendy clearly cares about. She has prepared her research. She has her facts together. She is trying to educate her classmates about a serious disease that affects millions of people, and Cartman will not stop mocking her. He interrupts her throughout the entire presentation. He makes jokes. He laughs. He turns to the other kids and makes faces while she is talking. And the thing that makes this even worse is that Mr. Garrison, who is supposed to be the adult in charge, does absolutely nothing to stop it. The show makes it clear that Garrison has completely given up trying to control Cartman. He has been dealing with this kid for years at this point, and he just does not have the energy to fight it anymore. So Cartman gets to sit there and ruin Wendy's presentation without any consequences from the teacher. After class, Cartman keeps going. He continues mocking Wendy about breast cancer in front of the other students. He will not let it go. He thinks it is the funniest thing in the world. And that is when Wendy snaps. She tells Cartman directly to his face that she is going to beat him up after school. Now, in most shows, this would be a simple confrontation. 2 kids threaten to fight, and either they fight or they do not. But South Park takes this premise and builds an entire episode around the build-up to this fight, and Cartman's increasingly desperate attempts to avoid it. The news spreads through the school instantly. Butters rallies the other classmates. Bebe alerts the girls in the bathroom. Ike, Kyle's little brother, reports the news to the kindergartners. Even the goth kids hear about it. Red goes and tells them directly. The entire school knows that Wendy is going to fight Eric Cartman after school, and everybody wants to watch. Cartman is terrified. He does not show it at first because Cartman never shows weakness publicly if he can avoid it. But the more the day goes on, the more desperate he becomes. He realizes this fight is actually going to happen, and he knows deep down that Wendy is going to destroy him. His first move is to try to apologize to Wendy privately. He pulls her aside into a janitor's closet and tries everything he can think of. He apologizes, he offers bribes, he makes desperate claims. He tries to sweet-talk her into calling it off. Wendy is not having any of it. She tells him there is nothing he can do to stop the fight. She refuses to reconcile unless Cartman apologizes publicly, which is something his ego will never allow him to do. Then Wendy says something to Cartman that rattles him to his core. She threatens to shove his butt down his throat and make him eat his own underwear. And Cartman, in one of the most pathetically desperate moments of the entire series, actually does it. He painfully chokes down his own underwear right there in the janitor's closet, trying to appease her. He literally eats his underwear, hoping that will make Wendy call off the fight. It does not work. It only disgusts her and makes her angrier. Cartman's next move is to try to get Stan to intervene. He goes to Stan and lies, telling Stan and the other kids that Wendy is actually the one trying to get out of the fight. He tries to spin the narrative so it looks like he is the reasonable one. But Stan tells Cartman he cannot do anything about it. There is nothing Stan can say to Wendy that will change her mind. Cartman calls Stan a coward and runs away. At this point, Cartman is running out of options. Then he overhears Clyde telling Butters that he is going to miss the fight because he has detention. And Cartman sees his opportunity. He runs into the classroom and deliberately defecates on Mr. Garrison's desk, right there in front of everyone. He does this specifically to get detention because if he is in detention after school, the fight cannot happen. It works. Temporarily, he gets detention with Mr. Mackey. But even in detention, the other kids know what he did. Butters, Craig, and Jimmy are all there, and Jimmy tells Cartman that there are rumors going around that he only got detention to dodge the fight. Cartman tries to play it off. He says he crapped on Garrison's desk because he is hardcore. Nobody believes him. And then Wendy appears at the detention room window. She tells Cartman the fight has been rescheduled for tomorrow morning. Detention did not save him, it only delayed the inevitable. That night, Cartman pulls his most manipulative move yet. He goes to Wendy's house with his mother. When Wendy comes downstairs, she finds Cartman sitting in her living room, sobbing into his mother's shirt, telling Wendy's parents that he is being threatened and bullied at school. He puts on this whole performance, tears streaming down his face, voice cracking, the perfect victim act. And it works on the adults. Wendy's parents are furious with her. They reprimand her. They force her to promise that she will not fight Cartman. They apologize to Cartman's mother and assure her it will never happen again. But here is the part that makes this scene so infuriating and so perfectly Cartman. While the adults have their backs turned, Cartman looks directly at Wendy and taunts her. He drops the crying act for just a second and gives her this smug, satisfied look that confirms everything was fake. He was never scared, he was never upset. He was manipulating the adults to get protection, and now Wendy cannot touch him without getting in serious trouble with her own parents. The next morning at school, Wendy keeps her promise. She refuses to fight, and Cartman, sensing that he is finally safe, does what Cartman always does. He pushes it further. He stands up in class and reads what he calls a report about breast cancer. But it is not a real report. It is just him telling breast cancer jokes and laughing at Wendy. He is jeering her, mocking her, rubbing her face in the fact that she backed down and he won. Wendy nearly loses it right there in the classroom. She almost attacks him. But then she gets called to Principal Victoria's office. Wendy thinks she is in trouble. She walks in expecting to be punished. But Principal Victoria does something unexpected. She congratulates Wendy on raising awareness for breast cancer. Then she mentions that she heard Wendy was planning to fight Cartman for making fun of it. Wendy tells her the fight is off. Victoria pauses and says something that changes everything. She tells Wendy that she is a breast cancer survivor herself. She tells Wendy that she learned firsthand that cancer is pure evil, that it cannot be reasoned with, that you have to risk everything fighting the fat little lump before it takes everything from you. Wendy catches on immediately. Principal Victoria is not talking about cancer. She is using cancer as a metaphor for Cartman. She is telling Wendy in the most indirect way possible that she needs to fight Cartman regardless of the consequences. The principal of the school is giving a student permission to beat up another student, and she is doing it through a coded speech about surviving cancer. Bebe spreads the word. The fight is back on. The entire school rushes outside. Every kid at South Park Elementary is gathered on the playground waiting for this to happen. And Wendy walks out with purpose. She is calm, she is focused, she is done playing games. Cartman tries one last time. He threatens to tattle again. He says he will go to her parents. He will go to the principal. He will tell every adult he can find. But Wendy tells him she does not care anymore. She does not care about getting in trouble. She does not care about the consequences. This is happening. And Cartman finally realizes he cannot escape. There is no trick left. No manipulation that will work, no adult to hide behind. He is standing on the playground in front of the entire school, and he is about to get exactly what he's been avoiding all episode. The fight starts, and Cartman actually gets in a couple of punches. For a brief moment, it looks like he might hold his own. But Wendy turns the tables almost immediately. She starts hitting Cartman harder and harder. She is relentless. The entire school is cheering her on. Every kid who has ever been bullied by Cartman, every kid who has ever been the target of his manipulation, every kid who has ever sat in that classroom and listened to him say horrible things, is watching Wendy deliver the beating of a lifetime. Cartman cannot fight back. He tries, but he is outmatched. Wendy is fueled by an entire episode's worth of frustration and anger, and she channels all of it into her fists. She hits him. She keeps hitting him. The other kids are losing their minds. They are screaming and cheering and jumping up and down. Mr. Mackey finally shows up to break it up, but by the time he gets there, Wendy is already done. She stops on her own terms. She stands up, looks down at the beaten and humiliated Cartman, and shouts 2 words. "I'm finished." Then she walks away. That is it. No comeback from Cartman, no clever quip, no scheme to get revenge. He is just lying there on the playground, defeated in front of everyone. The kid who spent the entire episode manipulating adults, lying to parents, eating his own underwear, defecating on desks, and doing everything in his power to avoid consequences, just got those consequences delivered directly to his face by a girl half his size. And the reason this moment is so satisfying, the reason fans bring it up constantly as one of the greatest Cartman karma moments ever, is because of how hard Cartman worked to avoid it. He did not just get punched out of nowhere, he spent the entire episode running. He used every tool in his manipulation toolkit. He exploited adults. He exploited the school system. He exploited sympathy. And none of it worked. The universe cornered him, and Wendy delivered the payoff that the audience had been waiting for since the first minute of the episode. This is Cartman karma at its purest. He mocked a serious disease. He bullied someone who was trying to do something good. He ran from the consequences, and the consequences found him anyway. Every trick he used, every lie he told, every desperate act of cowardice only made the final moment more satisfying when it arrived. And the best part is that Cartman learned absolutely nothing from this. The next time we see him in the series, he is back to being the same manipulative, cruel, selfish person he has always been. The beating did not change him. It just gave the audience one perfect moment of justice before the cycle started all over again. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have one of the greatest examples of greed destroying itself in television history. This next moment of karma comes from Season 5, Episode 6. The episode is called Cartman Land, and it aired in 2001. It is consistently ranked as one of the best episodes in the entire series, and it is a perfect case study in how Cartman's own personality is his worst enemy. The episode starts with a death in Cartman's family. His grandmother passes away. Now, in most families, this would be a sad occasion. There would be grief, there would be mourning. But this is Cartman, and the only thing he cares about is what he gets out of it. When the will is read, Cartman discovers that his grandmother left him $1 million. $1 million to a 9-year-old kid. His mother and the other adults expect Cartman to put the money in a trust fund. They expect him to save it for college or for his future. But Cartman has other plans. He takes the entire $1 million and buys an amusement park. The park is called North Park Funland. It is a real, functioning amusement park with roller coasters and rides and everything a kid could want. And Cartman buys it for one specific reason. He wants an amusement park all to himself. That is the dream. No lines, no other kids, no waiting. Just Cartman, alone, riding every ride whenever he wants for as long as he wants. He does not want to share it with anyone. He does not want other people there. He wants the entire park to himself. And then he makes it worse. He runs a television commercial specifically designed to taunt people. The commercial advertises Cartmanland and tells viewers that nobody is allowed in. Nobody, especially not Stan and Kyle. He mentions them by name in the commercial. He wants them to know that he has an amusement park and they cannot come. It is pure Cartman. He does not just want to enjoy something good. He wants other people to suffer knowing that they cannot have it. When Kyle sees this commercial, something breaks inside him. Kyle has always been the moral center of the show. He is the kid who tries to do the right thing. He stands up against injustice. He argues with Cartman about ethics and decency. And now he has to watch the worst person he knows live every kid's dream while he gets nothing. Kyle develops a hemorrhoid from the stress. The show plays this for comedy, but it also becomes a genuine health crisis. The hemorrhoid gets worse and worse as Cartman's good fortune increases. Kyle ends up in the hospital. His condition becomes so severe that he nearly dies. He has a crisis of faith. He cannot understand why God would let someone as terrible as Cartman have everything while someone who tries to be a good person suffers. Kyle's parents try to comfort him by telling him the story of Job from the Bible, a man who God tested with suffering. But this only makes things worse. Kyle decides that God must be a petty and cruel being who does bad things to good people for no reason. Meanwhile, Cartman is having the time of his life at his park. He rides the rides alone. He eats the food alone. He has the entire place to himself, and he is loving every second of it. Stan tells Kyle that nobody could really enjoy a theme park alone, but the show proves Stan wrong. Cartman is having a blast. But then reality starts creeping in. After the incident where Stan and Kyle tried to sneak into the park by climbing the fence, which is where Kyle popped his hemorrhoid on the wire, Cartman realizes he needs security. He hires a security guard. The security guard refuses to be paid in free rides. He wants actual money. The guard suggests that Cartman let in 2 paying customers per day to cover his salary. Cartman grudgingly agrees. 2 people in a big amusement park is basically nobody. He can handle 2. Then one of the rides breaks. Cartman needs a maintenance worker. The maintenance worker needs a salary. That means more paying customers. Then the food stands need staff. More salaries, more customers. The number keeps growing. 2 becomes 8, 8 becomes 20, 20 becomes 100. Each new expense requires more paying customers to cover it, and each group of new customers creates more expenses that require even more customers. This is capitalism working exactly as it is supposed to. You cannot run a business without employees. You cannot have employees without revenue. You cannot have revenue without customers. Cartman wanted to exclude everyone from his paradise, but the paradise itself requires other people to function. His dream was built on an impossibility. News broadcasts start covering Cartmanland. They praise Cartman as a financial genius. Business analysts talk about his brilliant strategy of telling people they cannot come, which they believe is a marketing technique designed to drive up demand. They do not realize that Cartman genuinely just does not want people there. Kyle sees these news reports from his hospital bed and his condition gets even worse. He has temporary heart failure. He is losing his will to live. Eventually, the expenses mount to the point where Cartman has to let everyone into the park. The gates are open, the lines are long, kids are everywhere. The park is packed and successful and making money. But Cartman is miserable. This is no longer his private paradise. It is just a regular amusement park full of screaming children and long waits. The exact thing he bought the park to escape from has become his reality. Cartman decides to sell. He sells the park back to its original owner, a man named Mr. Foon, for his original purchase price. He thinks he is walking away with his $1 million intact. But then the IRS shows up. Cartman never paid taxes on the park's income. The government takes all of his money. On top of that, Kenny died on one of the roller coasters while the park was open to the public. And Kenny's parents, the McCormicks, file a lawsuit. Between the taxes and the lawsuit, Cartman does not just lose his $1 million. He ends up owing an additional $13,000 in debt. He went from a millionaire to being $13,000 in the hole. Cartman frantically tries to buy the park back so he can use it to pay off his debts. But Mr. Foon will not sell. The park is now incredibly successful. There's no reason for him to give it back to a broke kid with no money and no sense. Stan gets an idea. He brings Kyle down to the park to see Cartman in his misery. And when Kyle arrives, he sees the most beautiful sight of his young life. Cartman is standing outside the fence of his own former park, furious and heartbroken. He is throwing rocks at the park like a child throwing a tantrum. And his own former security guard, the first employee he ever hired, sprays him directly in the eyes with mace. Cartman crumples to the ground in pain, screaming and crying outside the park that used to be his. Kyle watches this happen, and something changes inside him. His hemorrhoid goes into remission almost instantly. His will to live returns. He recovers so fast that the doctors are stunned. Kyle looks at Cartman's suffering and realizes that there is a God after all. There is justice in the universe. Bad things do happen to bad people. It just takes time. This episode is a masterpiece of karma because the punishment is not delivered by any one person. Nobody beats Cartman up. Nobody tricks him. Nobody gets revenge on him. Cartman destroys himself, his own greed, his own refusal to share, his own inability to understand how the world works is what tears his dream apart piece by piece. He had $1 million. He could have done anything with it. He could have invested it and been set for life. Instead, he used it to buy something that only works if other people are involved, and then he refused to involve other people. The contradiction ate him alive, and the fact that Kyle's health is literally tied to Cartman's fortune makes the whole thing even more poetic. When Cartman thrives, Kyle suffers. When Cartman suffers, Kyle heals. The show presents this as cosmic justice. The universe itself is keeping score. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the time Cartman got a taste of his own bigotry and learned absolutely nothing from it. This one comes from Season 9, Episode 11. The episode is called Ginger Kids and it aired in 2005. It is one of the most iconic Cartman episodes because it shows exactly how his brain works when it comes to prejudice, and how quickly he can flip his entire worldview based on nothing more than self-interest. The episode starts in the classroom. Cartman stands up and delivers a presentation to the class about people with red hair, light skin, and freckles. He calls them gingers, and his presentation is not just making fun of them. Cartman presents this like it is a scientific report. He uses charts and diagrams. He talks about a made-up condition called gingivitis. He claims that gingers have no souls. He says they are less than human. He delivers this with complete conviction, like he genuinely believes every word of it. The other kids are disturbed by this. Kyle pushes back immediately because Kyle is Jewish and he recognizes hate speech when he hears it. He calls Cartman out for being a bigot. But Cartman doubles down. He insists that everything he said is factual. He presents his prejudice as science, which is something that real hate groups have done throughout history. The show is making a very deliberate parallel here. Kyle, Stan, and Kenny decide that Cartman needs to learn a lesson. They come up with a plan. That night, while Cartman is sleeping, the three of them sneak into his bedroom. They dye his hair red. They paint freckles on his face. They make him look exactly like the type of person he just spent the day dehumanizing. Cartman wakes up the next morning, walks to the bathroom, looks in the mirror, and completely loses his mind. He sees red hair, he sees freckles, he sees pale skin. In his mind, he has become a ginger overnight. And his reaction is not what you might expect from someone who just learned empathy. There is no moment of realization where Cartman thinks, maybe I was wrong about gingers. There is no guilt. There is no self-reflection. Instead, Cartman does a complete 180-degree turn in the opposite direction. He immediately goes from believing gingers are subhuman to believing gingers are the master race. Within hours, he has organized a ginger pride movement. He gives speeches about ginger supremacy. He rallies other redheaded kids to his cause. He starts a ginger separatist group that rounds up non-ginger kids and puts them in cages. This is Cartman's entire worldview in a nutshell. Whatever group he belongs to is the superior group. Whatever group he does not belong to is the inferior group. There is no consistent moral framework. There is no principle behind his beliefs. It is pure tribalism driven by self-interest. When he was not a ginger, gingers were subhuman. The second he thinks he is a ginger, gingers are the chosen people. The prejudice itself does not matter to Cartman. The only thing that matters is that he is on top. The ginger separatist movement gets out of control. Cartman leads his followers through the streets. They start rounding up non-ginger children. They put kids in cages at an airport. The imagery is deliberately reminiscent of historical segregation and persecution. The show is not subtle about what it is parodying. Eventually, Kyle and the others reveal the truth. They tell Cartman that they dyed his hair and painted on the freckles while he was sleeping. They wash everything off. Cartman's hair goes back to brown. The freckles disappear. He is not a ginger. He never was. And Cartman's reaction is instant. The moment the dye is washed out, he immediately goes back to hating gingers. There is not even a pause. There is not even a beat of hesitation. 1 second he is leading a ginger supremacy movement, and the next second he is back to calling gingers soulless subhumans. The transformation happens so fast that it is both hilarious and deeply disturbing. The karma in this episode operates on 2 levels. On the surface level, Cartman experienced what it feels like to be the target of the exact kind of prejudice he dishes out. He felt the fear and the alienation and the otherness. But on a deeper level, the karma is that Cartman demonstrated to everyone around him and to the audience that his hatred is completely hollow. It is not based on anything real. It is not based on experience or evidence or even genuine emotion. It is just a reflex. He hates whatever group he is not part of and loves whatever group he is part of, and he can switch between the two in a heartbeat. The other kids see this, Kyle sees this, the audience sees this, and nobody is surprised. This is who Cartman has always been. The ginger episode just made it impossible to ignore. The fact that Cartman learns nothing from this experience is itself a form of karma. Most characters in most shows would have a moment of growth after being forced to walk in someone else's shoes. They would come out the other side changed. They would be better. Cartman does not change at all. And because he does not change, he is doomed to keep repeating the same patterns of behavior that bring him suffering over and over again. He is trapped in a cycle of his own making, and he will never escape it because he refuses to see what everyone else can see clearly. That is its own kind of punishment. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the time the entire school decided Cartman was dead, and he actually believed them. This karma moment comes from Season 9, Episode 6. The episode is called The Death of Eric Cartman, and it aired in 2005. It is one of the funniest and most psychologically revealing Cartman episodes in the entire series, because it shows what happens when Cartman faces the one punishment he cannot handle, being ignored. The episode starts at Stan's house. The boys are waiting for Stan's mom, Sharon, to come home with KFC. She arrives with bags of food and asks the boys to help her bring the groceries inside. While they are carrying things in, Cartman does something unforgivable. He eats all the skin off every piece of chicken before anyone else gets to have any. Every single piece. He peels the skin off and eats it, leaving nothing but bare, skinless chicken for everyone else. Now, this might seem like a small thing compared to some of the atrocities Cartman has committed over the years. He has committed hate crimes. He has fed people their own parents. He has started wars. But somehow, eating all the KFC skin is the thing that pushes the boys over the edge. Kenny bursts into tears, not quiet tears, full-on sobbing. The skin is the best part of KFC, and Cartman took all of it. This is the final straw. The next day at the bus stop, Stan, Kyle, and Kenny are still furious. They have a conversation about how to deal with Cartman. And they come to a realization that changes everything. They realize that Cartman thrives on attention. Positive attention, negative attention, it does not matter. Every time they yell at him, every time they insult him, every time they react to his behavior in any way, they are feeding him. They are giving him exactly what he wants. The only way to truly punish Cartman is to take away the one thing he needs more than anything else in the world, acknowledgement that he exists. They decide to completely ignore him. Not just a little bit, completely. They will not look at him. They will not talk to him. They will not respond when he speaks. They will act as if Eric Cartman does not exist. And the plan works perfectly because soon, most of the other kids at South Park Elementary join in. Word spreads through the school. Nobody acknowledges Cartman. And here is where the karma gets beautiful. A normal person, when confronted with the fact that all their friends are ignoring them, would probably ask themselves what they did wrong. They would reflect on their behavior. They would try to figure out why people are upset with them. Cartman does none of this. His brain cannot process the idea that people would voluntarily choose to ignore him. In Cartman's mind, he is the center of the universe. He is the most important person in any room. The idea that people would simply choose not to engage with him is so far outside his comprehension that his brain invents an alternative explanation. Cartman decides that he must be dead. He concludes that he died at some point and is now a ghost. That is why nobody can see or hear him. It is not that they are choosing to ignore him. It is that he is invisible because he is dead. This is how narcissistic Cartman is. He would rather believe he is literally dead than accept that people do not want to deal with him. Several things happen that reinforce this delusion. When Cartman goes home, he sees men carrying a large box out of his house. They mention that it was filled with chicken skins. Cartman interprets this as his casket being removed. In reality, it is the toilet that Cartman destroyed with his last use of it. Then he hears his mother screaming from inside the house. Cartman thinks she is crying over his death. She is actually having sex with a plumber. Every piece of evidence Cartman encounters gets filtered through his delusion, and every time he reaches the wrong conclusion. The one person who does not join the ignoring campaign is Butters. Butters was not part of the plan. Nobody told him what was going on. So when Butters sees Cartman at school, he just says, "Hello," like normal. And Cartman latches onto this immediately. If Cartman is a ghost and Butters can see him, then Butters must be a psychic medium. Butters is the only person in the world who can communicate with the dead, and Cartman needs his help to cross over to the other side. What follows is one of the funniest extended sequences in South Park history. Cartman drags Butters all over town trying to figure out what unfinished business is keeping him trapped on Earth. He has Butters apologize to everyone Cartman has ever wronged on Cartman's behalf, but the list of people Cartman has wronged is enormous. It takes forever. Gift baskets are delivered. Apologies are made. None of it works because none of it is real. Cartman is not actually dead. He is just being ignored. When the apology tour fails, Cartman has a violent outburst. He destroys Butters' room with a baseball bat. This gets Butters sent to the South Park Institute for Mental Health, where he is subjected to horrible treatment for over 14 hours. Poor Butters, who did nothing wrong and was just being his usual kind self, ends up institutionalized because of Cartman's delusion. That is classic South Park. The innocent bystander always suffers the most. Cartman eventually breaks Butters out of the institution. They consult a psychic named Dr. Lindsay, who tells them that God has kept Cartman on Earth to help with some kind of crisis. When they hear about a hostage situation at a Red Cross, Cartman believes this is his mission. He goes to the scene and actually manages to stop the criminals by moving things around, since everyone is ignoring him, and the criminals cannot see him either. The karma in this episode is not physical. Nobody punches Cartman, nobody tricks him. The karma is existential. The most devastating thing you can do to a narcissist is treat them like they do not matter. Cartman's entire identity is built on being the center of attention. Take that away and his mind literally breaks. He invents an alternate reality rather than face the truth that people simply do not want to be around him. And the deeper karma is what this reveals about Cartman's self-awareness. He has none. A person with even a small amount of self-awareness would have connected the KFC skin incident to the ignoring. They would have thought, maybe I did something wrong and people are upset with me. Cartman cannot make that connection. He has so little understanding of how his behavior affects others that he jumps straight from people are not talking to me to I must be dead. That gap in self-awareness is not just funny. It is the reason Cartman will never change. He will never improve. He will never become a better person because he cannot see himself clearly enough to know what needs to change. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the time Cartman's own mother had to bring in a dog trainer to control him. This one comes from Season 10, Episode 7. The episode is called Tst, and it aired in 2006. It is one of the most unique Cartman episodes because for a brief, shining moment, Cartman actually changes. He actually becomes a better person, and then it all falls apart, and the way it falls apart is the cruelest karma of all. The episode begins with Leon Cartman at the end of her rope. Cartman's behavior has gotten so out of control that she does not know what to do anymore. She has tried everything a parent can try and nothing has worked. So she starts hiring professionals. She brings in a series of reality television nannies, the kind you see on those shows where experts come into chaotic households and try to restore order. The first nanny arrives and tries to implement discipline. Cartman destroys her, he manipulates her, he outsmarts her. He pushes her so far past her breaking point that she ends up being committed to a mental institution. That is not an exaggeration. The show literally depicts a professional child behavior expert being institutionalized after spending time with Cartman. She could not handle him. The second nanny fares no better. Cartman breaks her too. She requires psychological treatment after her experience with him. Cartman is not just a difficult child. He is a force of destruction that breaks the people who try to help him. Leon is running out of options. She has tried multiple professionals and they have all failed. Then someone suggests a different approach. Someone suggests bringing in Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer. Cesar Millan is a real person who became famous for his television show where he trained misbehaving dogs using calm, assertive energy. The joke of the episode is that Cartman is so out of control that the only person who can handle him is someone who specializes in training animals. Cesar arrives at the Cartman house and immediately sees the problem. Leanne has no authority. She lets Cartman walk all over her. She gives him whatever he wants. She never sets boundaries. She never follows through on consequences. Cesar does not try to negotiate with Cartman. He does not try to reason with him or explain why his behavior is wrong. He treats Cartman exactly like a misbehaving dog. The key technique is the tiest. It is a quick pinch on the neck accompanied by a sharp sound. When a dog misbehaves, you pinch the neck and make the sound. The dog's instincts kick in, and it submits to the dominant presence. Cesar teaches Leon to do this to Cartman, and it works. Every time Cartman acts out, Leanne does the zest. Cartman hits the floor. He submits. He cannot overpower this technique because it bypasses his intellect entirely. Cartman is smart enough to manipulate adults through words and emotions, but the test does not engage with words or emotions. It targets pure animal instinct. And on that level, Cartman is no different from a misbehaving puppy. Over the course of the episode, Cartman starts to change. He begins eating healthy food instead of junk. He does his homework, he speaks politely, he behaves like a normal child. The transformation is so dramatic that it is almost unnerving. This is not the Cartman anyone recognizes. This is a different person entirely. Cartman himself recognizes what is happening to him. He starts to resist. He can feel his old personality slipping away. At one point, he begins planning to commit matricide. He actually plots to kill his own mother to stop the transformation. He tries to get his friends to help him, but Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Butters all refuse. Nobody is going to help Cartman murder his mom. Then something remarkable happens. That night, Cartman experiences what appears to be a genuine crisis of conscience. His heavily repressed conscience surfaces for the first time in the entire series. He has an internal battle between his old evil self and this new, potentially decent person he could become. The show visualizes this by having Cartman vomit black fluid, symbolizing the evil leaving his body. He fights between his two sides until he passes out on the floor. The next morning, Leanne comes downstairs and finds Cartman sitting at the table doing homework and eating a healthy breakfast. He is polite, he is calm, he is a completely different child. Cesar pays a final visit and declares the situation improved. But Leanne asks Cesar if he wants to see Madame Butterfly with her. She is not just grateful to Cesar, she is attracted to him. She wants to spend time with him. Cesar gently tells her that she is just a client and he has other work to do. Leanne is heartbroken, and in that heartbreak, she makes the decision that ruins everything. She turns to Cartman and invites him to go to Madame Butterfly with her instead. She offers to buy him a Mega Ranger toy if he comes along. Cartman, sensing the shift, asks if he can have two. Leanne says yes. She tells him he can have whatever he wants. And just like that, the entire episode's worth of progress collapses. Cartman's expression changes. That old, familiar, sinister look returns to his face. The warm, polite, reformed child is gone. The The monster is back. Leanne just undid weeks of behavioral training in 5 seconds because she was lonely and she does not know how to love her son without spoiling him. She does not know the difference between being a good parent and being a pushover. The karma in this episode operates in 2 directions. On one level, Cartman gets what he deserves when Caesar trains him like a dog. The show tells Cartman exactly what he is. He is not a genius. He is not a mastermind. He is a poorly trained animal, and the only person who can handle him is someone who works with animals. That is humiliating on a level that transcends getting punched or getting tricked. But on another level, the deeper karma is the lost opportunity. For one brief moment, Cartman had the chance to be a normal person. He had the chance to escape the cycle of cruelty and manipulation that defines his entire existence. His conscience surfaced. The evil was literally leaving his body. He was on the verge of becoming someone worth knowing, and then his mother gave it all back. She handed him the keys to his own prison, and he walked right back in. Cartman will never get that chance again. The show makes that clear. The one person who could have saved him, his own mother, is too weak and too broken to follow through. And Cartman, who for one single night almost became a decent human being, chose comfort over growth. He chose Mega Rangers over self-improvement. He chose being a monster because being a monster is easier than being a person. That is the cruelest karma the show has ever delivered. Not a beating, not a loss, but a glimpse of what could have been, followed by the knowledge that it will never happen. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the time Cartman's own elaborate scheme to spy on Butters turned into a prison of his own making. This one comes from Season 8, Episode 5. The episode is called Awesome-O, and it aired in 2004. It is one of the most beloved Cartman and Butters episodes in the entire series, and it is a perfect example of how Cartman's schemes have a way of trapping him inside his own lies. The premise is simple. Cartman builds a robot costume out of cardboard boxes. He covers himself in silver spray paint and duct tape and calls himself Awesome-O. He shows up at Butters' house pretending to be a highly advanced robot companion that has been sent to be Butters' best friend. The reason Cartman does this is because he wants to learn Butters' embarrassing secrets. He figures if Butters thinks he is talking to a robot, Butters will let his guard down and reveal things that Cartman can later use to humiliate him. Butters falls for it immediately. He is thrilled. He has a robot friend. He starts talking to Awesome-O about everything, his fears, his dreams, his secrets. Butters is so trusting and so innocent that he opens up completely, and Cartman is soaking it all in, waiting for the perfect piece of blackmail material. But then Butters drops a bomb. Butters casually mentions to Awesome-O that he has a videotape. On this videotape is footage of Eric Cartman, their mutual acquaintance, dressed up as Britney Spears, dancing with a cardboard cutout of Justin Timberlake. Cartman was alone when he made this tape. He thought nobody would ever see it. But Butters somehow got a hold of it, and he has it stored away. This changes everything. Cartman cannot break character now. If he reveals that he is Awesome-O, Butters will know that Cartman tried to spy on him, and Butters will release the tape as revenge. The Britney Spears tape is the most embarrassing thing in Cartman's life. If the kids at school see that footage, Cartman's reputation is destroyed, so Cartman is trapped inside his own robot costume. And Butters, sweet, oblivious Butters, decides to take his new robot friend everywhere. He takes Awesome-O on a trip to Los Angeles. He takes Awesome-O to visit relatives. He drags this robot around like a new toy, completely unaware that the kid who has bullied him for years is sweating inside a cardboard box 2 feet away from him. In Los Angeles, things get even worse for Cartman. Movie studio executives discover Awesome-O and decide to use him to pitch movie ideas. They sit Cartman down in a room and demand that he generate concepts for new films. Cartman, still trapped in his robot persona, starts pitching ideas. Most of them involve Adam Sandler in various absurd scenarios. The executives love them. They keep asking for more. Cartman generates dozens of movie ideas, all while slowly dying inside. Then, the military gets involved. The United States military learns about this advanced robot and decides they want to weaponize Awesome-O. Cartman is taken to a military facility where they plan to study him and potentially turn him into a weapon of war. A 9-year-old kid in a cardboard box is now a military asset. The absurdity of the situation is entirely Cartman's fault. Every layer of trouble he encounters is a direct consequence of his original plan to spy on Butters. Throughout all of this, Cartman is starving. He cannot eat because robots do not eat. He cannot use the bathroom because robots do not use bathrooms. At one point, he is so desperate for sustenance that he resorts to eating toothpaste from a tube. The show's creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone have said that the toothpaste scene is one of their favorite moments in all of South Park. The whole thing finally collapses when Cartman's body betrays him. He has been holding in gas for what appears to be days. He cannot hold it any longer. He farts inside the robot costume, and the sound and smell reveal to everyone that Osimo is not actually a robot. He is a human being, a disgusting, sweaty, toothpaste-eating human being who has been pretending to be a machine. Butters realizes it was Cartman. The ruse is over. And now the dynamic is completely reversed. Butters has the Britney Spears tape. Butters has the leverage. Cartman's entire scheme, which was designed to humiliate Butters, has resulted in Cartman being humiliated far worse than Butters ever could have been. He got trapped in his own costume, dragged across the country, forced to pitch movie ideas to Hollywood executives, nearly turned into a military weapon, and starved to the point of eating toothpaste. All because he wanted to learn Butters' secrets. The karma is structural. Cartman designed a trap for Butters and ended up trapped in it himself. The scheme worked too well. Butters believed the robot was real so completely that he never gave Cartman an opportunity to escape the lie. And the Britney Spears tape, which Cartman did not even know Butters had, became the lock on his prison. He could not reveal the truth without destroying himself. So he had to keep going deeper and deeper into the lie until it consumed him. This is a pattern with Cartman that we see over and over throughout the series. His schemes are often brilliant in conception, but they always have a fatal flaw. And that flaw is almost always Cartman himself. His ego, his need for control, his inability to quit while he is ahead. He could have abandoned the Osimo plan the moment Butters mentioned the tape. He could have walked away and found another way to deal with the situation. But Cartman does not walk away from anything. He doubles down. He always doubles down. And doubling down is what turns a bad situation into a catastrophe. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have what might be the most psychologically devastating karma Cartman has ever received: the revelation that he killed his own father. This story spans 2 major episodes across 2 different seasons. It starts in Season 5, Episode 4, an episode called Scott Tenorman Must Die. That episode aired in 2001, and it is widely considered the single most important Cartman episode ever made. It has a 9.6 out of 10 rating on IMDb, making it the highest rated episode in the entire series. The show's co-creator Trey Parker has acknowledged that this is the episode where Cartman transformed from a spoiled brat into a genuine sociopath. Everything that came after was built on what happens in this episode. The story begins simply enough. Cartman buys a bag of pubic hair from an older kid named Scott Tenorman. Scott is a 9th grader. Cartman pays $10 for the pubes because Cartman, in his ignorance, thinks that having pubic hair means he has reached puberty before all his friends. Stan and Kyle quickly explain to Cartman that you are supposed to grow your own pubes. You do not buy them. Cartman has been scammed. Cartman tries to get his money back. He tries multiple times. Every single attempt fails. Scott outwits him at every turn. Cartman loses an additional $6.12 in the process. He gets tricked into traveling all the way to Fort Collins for a pube fair that does not exist. He gets publicly humiliated. Eventually, Scott forces Cartman to dance like a pig in front of people and then lights Cartman's money on fire just to watch him scream. Kyle tells Cartman to accept the loss and move on because Scott is simply smarter than him. But Cartman does not accept losses. Cartman gets even. What happens next is the darkest thing the show had ever done up to that point. Cartman crafts an elaborate revenge plan that involves multiple moving parts. He trains one of Farmer Denkin's ponies to bite people. He invites Radiohead, Scott's favorite band, to come to South Park by writing them a fake letter saying that Scott has cancer. He then invites Scott to a chili cook-off. Here is where the genius of Cartman's plan becomes apparent. He knew that Stan and Kyle would betray him. He predicted that they would warn Scott about the pony. He anticipated that Scott would send his parents to deal with the pony instead of going himself. And he knew that Farmer Denkins had a policy of shooting trespassers on sight. So Cartman went to Denkin's ranch beforehand and warned him that violent pony killers had been spotted in the area. When Scott's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Tenorman, showed up at the ranch that night, Denkins shot and killed them both. He thought they were the trespassers. Cartman arrived at the scene just in time to steal the bodies. At the chili cook-off, Scott serves Cartman a bowl of chili laced with pubic hair, which is the revenge Scott planned. He thinks he is about to humiliate Cartman in front of the whole town. But Cartman already knew about the pubic hair plan. He switched the chili bowls with chef's chili, then Cartman reveals the truth. He tells Scott that Scott's parents are dead. He tells Scott that Denkins shot them on his property. He tells Scott that he stole the corpses. He tells Scott that he spent the night cutting them up with a hacksaw. And then he tells Scott to look at the chili he has been eating. The chili that Cartman prepared, the chili that Scott has already consumed most of. Scott reaches into the bowl and pulls out his mother's finger with her diamond ring still on it. He realizes that Cartman killed his parents, dismembered them, cooked them into chili, and fed them to him. Scott vomits in horror and begins sobbing. And on cue, exactly on Cartman's schedule, Radiohead arrives. They see Scott crying and call him a crybaby who is totally not cool. They walk away in disgust. Cartman stands on the table and taunts Scott. He licks the tears off Scott's face and calls them the tears of unfathomable sadness. Kyle turns to Stan and says they should probably never make Cartman angry again. Stan immediately agrees. This episode established Cartman as one of the most dangerous fictional characters ever created. He murdered 2 people, cooked them into food, and fed them to their own son. He did all of this over $16.12. That is the person we are dealing with. But the karma for this moment did not arrive until years later. In Season 14, Episodes 5 and 6, called 200 and 201, which aired in 2010, Scott Tenorman returns. He has spent years in a mental institution processing what happened to him. He has done extensive research into Cartman's background, and he forces the town to reveal a secret that changes everything. Scott forces the townspeople to tell Cartman the truth about his father. For years, the show had said that Cartman's mother, Leanne, was also his father because she was a hermaphrodite. This was established in the Season 2 premiere, but in 2001, the truth comes out. The DNA tests were faked. The town conspired to cover up Cartman's real paternity because his father was a member of the Denver Broncos, and the townspeople did not want to ruin the Broncos season. Cartman's real father was Jack Tenorman. Jack Tenorman was a Denver Bronco who had an affair with Leanne Cartman at a drunken party. Jack Tenorman was also Scott Tenorman's father. This means that Scott Tenorman is Cartman's half-brother. They share the same father. And here's where the karma hits like a freight train. The parents that Cartman had killed and fed to Scott in the chili cook-off, one of them was Jack Tenorman. One of them was Cartman's own biological father. Cartman arranged the death of his own dad. He dismembered his own dad. He cooked his own dad into chili, and he did not even know. When this truth is revealed, Cartman's reaction is the most Cartman thing imaginable. He does not grieve his father. He does not feel remorse for killing him. He does not feel guilt about what he did to Scott, his own half-brother. The only thing that upsets Cartman is the realization that being Jack Tenorman's son makes him half ginger, because Scott Tenorman has red hair. And if they share a father, then Cartman might carry ginger genes. That is the level of self-absorption we are dealing with. Cartman just learned that he murdered his own father, and his primary concern is whether or not he might be part of a group he hates. The show found a way to take Cartman's single most evil act and turn it into his single most devastating karma. The revenge he is most proud of, the moment that defined him as a character, is also the moment he killed his own dad and did not know it for 9 years. Scott Tenorman understood this. He spent years putting the pieces together. He waited until the perfect moment to reveal the truth. And when he did, he made sure Cartman heard it from the entire town. Every person in South Park knew the truth except Cartman. He was the last to find out, and the revelation was public and humiliating. This is karma on a scale that most shows would never attempt. It takes a moment from Season 5 and recontextualizes it 4 seasons later. It makes the audience look back at an episode they thought they understood and realize they were missing the most important piece. Cartman fed his own father to his own half-brother, and the universe waited almost a decade to tell him. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the time Cartman's own superhero team unanimously voted to kick him out. This one spans across 3 episodes in Season 14, episodes 11, 12, and 13. They are called Coon, To Hindsight, Mysterion Rises, and Coon vs. Coon and Friends. They aired in 2010 as a trilogy, and they represent one of the most elaborate and satisfying rejections Cartman has ever experienced. The backstory goes like this. Earlier in the series, Cartman created a superhero alter ego called the Coon. He dressed up in a raccoon costume with claws on his fingers and declared himself a crime-fighting vigilante. He saw South Park as a city that needed protection, and he appointed himself as the Protector. The problem was that nobody took him seriously. The police told him to leave. The other kids did not care. And when another masked vigilante named Mysterion showed up and actually started helping people, Cartman was furious that someone else was getting the superhero attention he craved. By the time the Coon trilogy begins in Season 14, Cartman has formed a full team. He calls them Coon and Friends. The roster includes some of the most important characters in the show. Mysterion, who is actually Kenny McCormick, is the most dedicated member. Toolshed is Stan. Human Kite is Kyle. Mosquito is Clyde. Tupperware is Tolkien. Mintberry Crunch is Bradley Biggle. Even Timmy is involved as Iron Maiden. These kids genuinely want to help people. The conflict comes during a massive crisis. The BP oil spill has devastated the Gulf, and a drilling company called DP accidentally opens a portal to another dimension, causing gigantic alien creatures to attack. Cthulhu, the cosmic horror entity from HP, Lovecraft's mythology emerges. The world needs heroes, and Cartman does not care. He does not care about the oil spill. He does not care about the people suffering. He does not care about the alien creatures or Cthulhu or any of it. The only thing Cartman cares about is being in charge and getting credit. He wants Coon and Friends to focus on building his brand. He wants them to resolve a separate issue involving Captain Hindsight, a character who can only point out what should have been done after something bad happens. Cartman explicitly states that he has no interest in helping the victims of the BP crisis. He says it out loud. He does not even try to hide his selfishness. Mysterion, who actually takes being a hero seriously, insists that the team vote on their priorities. The vote is unanimous. Every single member of Coon and Friends votes against Cartman. They want to help people. Cartman wants to help himself. The team chooses the victims over their leader. But Cartman does not accept the vote. He responds to being overruled by beating up Mosquito and Mintberry Crunch. He physically attacks his own teammates. He uses violence to try to regain control, mimicking a scene from Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. The show makes this visual connection deliberately. Cartman is not just a bully. He is behaving like a cinematic psychopath. The team has had enough. They hold another vote. This time, they unanimously vote to kick Cartman out of Coon and Friends, out of the group he created, out of the team that bears his name. Every single member, every kid who signed up to be part of Cartman's vision, turns their back on him and tells him he is no longer welcome. And here is the detail that makes this karma especially devastating. Cartman threatens to tell his mother. He says that since Coon and Friends uses his basement as their headquarters, he will have his mom shut the whole thing down. But the team already thought of that. They already talked to Leon Cartman. They went to her before the vote. And Leon agreed with them. She sided with the other kids over her own son. She grounded Cartman for using bad language and beating up his friends. So Cartman is kicked out of his own group, voted out unanimously, and grounded by his own mother who was consulted beforehand. He is alone in his room, stripped of his power, his team, and his authority. And does he reflect on what he did wrong? Does he consider that maybe beating up your teammates and refusing to help people in need might be why they turned on you? Of course not. Cartman sits in his room and decides that the problem is not with him. The problem is with everyone else. He concludes that his friends must have turned evil. That is the only explanation his brain can produce. They kicked him out, therefore they are evil, and he is still the hero. This is the same pattern we saw in the death of Eric Cartman. Cartman would rather invent an alternate reality than face the truth about himself. He eventually escapes from his room by jumping out the window, screaming insults at his former teammates. He allies with Cthulhu, the cosmic horror entity, and uses it to attack the friends who rejected him. Cartman befriends Cthulhu the same way a child would befriend a cat, by tickling its belly and using a cute baby voice. And Cthulhu, an ancient cosmic being of incomprehensible power, falls for it. The friends ultimately defeat Cartman and his Cthulhu partnership. Mintberry Crunch, who turns out to have actual superpowers, saves the day. And Cartman ends the trilogy with nothing. No team, no reputation, no power. The group he built, the superhero identity he created, the basement headquarters he provided, all of it continues without him because the team realized they are better off without their founder. This is karma in its most institutional form. It is not one person delivering punishment. It is a unanimous decision by a group of his peers. Every single person who spent time with Cartman in a collaborative environment independently reached the same conclusion. He is the problem. He makes everything worse, and they are better off without him. When every person in your life reaches the same conclusion about you, that is not a conspiracy against you. That is a mirror. Before we move on, before we move, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the time Cartman kidnapped Butters and hid him in a bomb shelter just to go to a restaurant. This comes from Season 7, Episode 11. The episode is called Casa Bonita, and it aired in 2003. It is one of the most famous episodes in the entire series, and it perfectly captures how far Cartman will go to get something he wants, even when the thing he wants is just dinner at a Mexican restaurant. Casa Bonita is a real restaurant. It exists in Lakewood, Colorado, just outside Denver. It is an enormous Mexican food establishment that is famous for its over-the-top decor and entertainment. There are cliff divers who jump into pools of water inside the restaurant. There's a cave called Black Bart's Cave with spooky animatronics. There are waterfalls and arcades and sopapillas. For a kid growing up in Colorado, Casa Bonita is the greatest restaurant on earth. And for Cartman, it is basically heaven. The episode begins when Kyle announces that his birthday is coming up and his parents are letting him take 3 friends to Casa Bonita for a party. 3 friends, not 4. 3. Kyle tells Stan, Kenny, and Butters that they are invited. He deliberately does not invite Cartman. When Cartman hears about this, he is devastated. He cannot believe Kyle would not invite him. Kyle, who has spent years being the target of Cartman's anti-Semitic abuse and manipulation, calmly explains that Cartman has treated him terribly and he has no interest in bringing him along. This is one of the few times in the show where Kyle exercises his power over Cartman simply by saying no. He does not fight him, he does not trick him, he just says you are not coming and that is final. For most people, this would be the end of the story. You are not invited, you accept it and move on. But this is Cartman, and moving on is not in his vocabulary. Cartman begins to scheme. He needs to get one of the invited kids removed from the list so he can take their spot. He decides Butters is the weakest link. Butters is trusting. Butters is naive. Butters can be manipulated, so Cartman puts a plan into motion. He tells Butters that a meteor is heading toward Earth. He tells Butters that the apocalypse is coming. He convinces Butters that civilization is about to be destroyed, and the only safe place is an underground bomb shelter that Cartman knows about. Butters, because he is Butters, believes every word. He is terrified. He agrees to go into the bomb shelter to survive. Cartman takes Butters to the shelter and locks him inside. He tells Butters to stay put because the surface world is too dangerous. He brings Butters food and supplies to keep him alive down there. And while Butters is underground, believing that the world has ended and that he is one of the last survivors of a global catastrophe, Cartman goes to Kyle and tells him that Butters cannot make it to the birthday party. He says Butters is sick or busy or something. Kyle, needing a 4th person, reluctantly invites Cartman to take Butters' place. Cartman gets exactly what he wanted. He goes to Casa Bonita, he rides the rides, he eats the food, he watches the cliff divers. He goes through Black Bart's Cave. He has the time of his life while Butters sits in a dark underground shelter, alone and frightened, believing that everyone on the surface of the earth is dead. Meanwhile, Butters' parents notice that he is missing. The police get involved. A search begins. The whole town is looking for Butters. Cartman keeps having to sneak away from the birthday party to check on Butters and bring him supplies. He tells Butters that the surface is still too dangerous. He tells him that radiation levels are too high. He keeps the lie going as long as he can because every minute the lie holds is another minute at Casa Bonita. Eventually, the truth comes out. The police find Butters in the shelter. Cartman is caught. He is arrested. He is sentenced to a week in juvenile detention. This is one of the few times in the series where Cartman faces actual legal consequences for his actions. But here is the Cartman moment that makes this episode legendary. When the police are leading him away, Cartman does not show remorse. He does not apologize. He does not even seem upset about going to juvie. His reaction is that the week in juvenile detention was worth it because he got to experience Casa Bonita. He went to the restaurant. He saw the cliff divers. He ate the food. That is all that matters to him. A week in jail is an acceptable price for one night at his favorite restaurant. The karma in this episode is twofold. First, there is the practical karma. Cartman goes to jail. He faces legal consequences. He gets caught and punished. That is satisfying on a basic level. But the deeper karma is what Kyle's refusal revealed about Cartman's character. Kyle said no. That was it. One simple word. And Cartman's response to being told no was to kidnap a child, fake an apocalypse, imprison someone underground, and lie to a grieving family about their missing son. All for a birthday dinner at a restaurant. Kyle was right not to invite him. The episode proves it. Cartman's reaction to not getting what he wants is so disproportionate, so extreme, so fundamentally unhinged, that Kyle's original decision is vindicated beyond any doubt. This is why you do not invite Cartman to things, because when he does not get invited, people get locked in bomb shelters. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the time Cartman faked a medical condition and it became real. This one comes from Season 11, Episode 8. The episode is called Le Petit Tourette and it aired in 2007. It is one of the smartest Cartman episodes because the karma does not come from an external source. It comes from inside Cartman's own brain. His own body turns against him. The episode starts when Cartman encounters a boy with Tourette syndrome at a toy store. Tourette syndrome is a real neurological condition that causes people to make involuntary movements and vocalizations called tics. Some people with Tourette syndrome have tics that cause them to say inappropriate or profane things, though this particular symptom is actually fairly rare in real life. But Cartman does not know that. All Cartman sees is a kid who can say whatever he wants, including profanity and slurs, and nobody can punish him for it because it is a medical condition. Cartman immediately sees an opportunity. He decides to fake Tourette syndrome. He goes to his mother and starts randomly shouting obscenities, claiming he cannot control what comes out of his mouth. Leanne, always gullible when it comes to her son, takes him to a doctor. The doctor actually believes Cartman. He diagnoses him with Tourette syndrome. With his fake diagnosis in hand, Cartman becomes unstoppable. He walks through school shouting anti-Semitic slurs at Kyle. He curses at adults. He says the most offensive things he can think of directly to people's faces, and when they react, he just shrugs and says he cannot help it. It is his condition. The look of devilish joy on Cartman's face as he realizes he has found the ultimate cheat code for social interaction is one of the most perfectly animated expressions in the show. He has found a way to say everything he has always wanted to say with zero consequences. Kyle knows it is fake. Kyle has known Cartman for years, and he knows exactly what this is. He tries to tell the adults that Cartman is lying, but nobody listens. The fake diagnosis is too powerful. Questioning someone's medical condition makes you look like the bad guy, not them. Cartman has essentially weaponized disability, and the social norms around disability are protecting him. Kyle goes to a Tourette syndrome support group to try to find evidence that Cartman is faking. But when he gets there, he meets actual people with the condition. Real kids who struggle with real tics. Kids who have been bullied and ostracized because of something they cannot control. Kyle feels terrible. He realizes that exposing Cartman's lie might also hurt these innocent people by drawing negative attention to the condition. Meanwhile, Cartman is living his best life. He can say anything. He can insult anyone. Nobody can touch him. It is the perfect scheme with no apparent downside. But then the karma arrives, and it arrives from a direction Cartman never anticipated. He fakes the condition for so long and so convincingly that his brain starts to malfunction. The lines between what he can control and what he cannot control begin to blur. Cartman starts blurting things out involuntarily, not the offensive slurs he was using against Kyle. Those were deliberate. The things he starts blurting out are his own genuine, deeply personal, embarrassing secrets. He confesses things he has never told anyone, things that reveal vulnerability and weakness, things that Eric Cartman would never willingly share with another human being. He admits to crying alone at night. He admits to bedwetting. He starts revealing intimate, humiliating details about his real life. And he cannot stop it. The filter between his brain and his mouth has eroded from overuse. He spent so long pretending to have no filter that he actually lost his filter. This terrifies Cartman because he has been booked to appear on Dateline NBC with Chris Hansen. The appearance is supposed to be a big public moment where Cartman shows off his condition on national television. But now, with his filter destroyed, Cartman knows that he will not be able to control what he says on live TV. He will start blurting out his real secrets in front of millions of people. His darkest, most embarrassing truths will be broadcast to the entire country. Cartman desperately tries to fix himself before the Dateline appearance. He tries to rebuild his mental filter. He tries to practice self-control. But it is too late. The damage is done. The thing he faked has become functionally real. His brain adapted to the lie, and now it cannot tell the difference between what Cartman wants to say and what Cartman is supposed to keep hidden. The episode resolves in a way that saves Cartman from the worst possible outcome. Kyle inadvertently helps him when the Dateline taping goes sideways due to unrelated events. But the karma has already been delivered. Cartman spent weeks exploiting a real medical condition for personal gain, and the universe punished him by making the fake condition become real. His weapon turned on him. The thing he used to hurt others started hurting him. This is one of the most clever karma structures in the entire series because it is organic. Nobody punishes Cartman externally. The punishment emerges naturally from his own behavior. If you pretend to have no self-control for long enough, you will actually lose self-control. If you spend all day, every day saying whatever comes to mind without consequences, your brain will eventually forget how to hold things back. The lie became the truth, and the truth was worse than anything Cartman's enemies could have done to him. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have an early karma moment from Season 3 where Cartman exploited the legal system and watched it collapse around him. This comes from Season 3, Episode 6. The episode is called Sexual Harassment Panda, and it aired in 1999. It is an early example of a pattern that would repeat throughout the series. Cartman finds a system he can exploit, exploits it ruthlessly, and the exploitation spirals out of control. The episode begins when a mascot character called Petey, the sexual harassment panda, visits the school to teach the kids about sexual harassment laws. After the presentation, Stan calls Cartman a name. It is a crude insult, nothing out of the ordinary for kids in South Park. But Cartman, having just learned about sexual harassment from the panda, realizes that name-calling can be classified as sexual harassment under certain legal interpretations. Cartman sues Stan. He actually goes to court. He hires Gerald Broflovsky, Kyle's father, as his lawyer. Gerald is a practicing attorney who should know better. But the potential for a big settlement is too tempting. Cartman takes the stand and delivers a wildly exaggerated testimony about how Stan's name-calling caused him deep emotional distress. He cries. He makes dramatic claims about how the experience traumatized him. Stan's defense is essentially that he is 8 years old. That is it. He has no lawyer. He has no legal strategy. He is a child standing in front of a judge saying that children should not be sued for name-calling. The judge, citing sexual harassment legislation, rules in Cartman's favor. Stan has to give some of his personal assets to Cartman as compensation. Cartman does a victory dance. He has discovered that the legal system can be weaponized. Insults are no longer just words. They are paychecks. Gerald suggests they go bigger. He tells Cartman to sue the school for failing to prevent the harassment. Cartman agrees. During the trial against the school, the testimony is a disaster for the defense. Mr. Garrison takes the stand and contradicts himself, ultimately admitting that he knew about the name-calling and chose not to act because he agrees that Cartman is, in fact, the insult Stan called him. The spectators laugh. Principal Victoria takes the stand and accidentally confesses to an unrelated crime in her paranoia. Petey, the sexual harassment panda, testifies that the school is liable under current law. Cartman wins the lawsuit and is awarded $1.3 million. He does another victory dance. Gerald uses the legal windfall to expand his house and live lavishly. But the karma has already been set in motion. The problem is that Cartman did not just exploit the system for himself. He demonstrated to the entire town that the system could be exploited by anyone. And once people see that a 9-year-old can win $1 million lawsuit for being called a name, everyone starts suing everyone. The entire town devolves into a frenzy of frivolous lawsuits. Everyone is suing their neighbors, their friends, their co-workers, their family members. The legal system grinds to a halt under the weight of it all. The weapon Cartman unleashed consumed everything. The system he abused for his own benefit collapsed, taking down the people who helped him profit from it, including Gerald, who finds himself on the losing end of the new reality. The money becomes meaningless in a town where nobody can say anything to anyone without being served papers. This is early series Cartman before he became a full sociopath. The cruelty here is more childish than calculated, but the karma structure is the same one the show would use over and over again in later seasons. Cartman finds a loophole. He exploits it mercilessly. The exploitation creates a chain reaction that spirals beyond anyone's control. And the system that rewarded Cartman's bad behavior eventually punishes everyone, including the people who enabled it. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have a karma moment that is different from the others because it comes from Cartman's past coming back to haunt him in a very literal way. This one goes back to Season 8, Episode 10. The episode is called Preschool and it aired in 2004. It tells the story of what happened when Cartman and the other boys were in preschool and how a lie they told as little kids created consequences that follow them for years. The episode opens with Stan in a panic. He pulls Kyle and Kenny aside and tells them that Trent Boyette, a kid from their preschool days, is about to be released from juvenile hall on parole. Kyle and Kenny are equally horrified. When Cartman finds out, his arrogant dismissal turns to fear instantly. The flashback reveals what happened. When the boys were in preschool, they got the idea to play firemen. They decided to start a real fire and then put it out, proving they could be heroes. They needed someone to actually start the fire, so they asked Trent Boyette, the toughest kid in preschool. Butters warned them not to do it. They ignored him. Trent agreed to start the fire when the boys assured him they knew how to extinguish it. When the fire started, the boys tried to put it out by urinating on it. This did not work. The fire grew. Their teacher, Miss Claridge, saw what was happening and tried to intervene. She was engulfed in the flames. The boys then urinated on Miss Claridge to try to put her out. The police arrived. And instead of telling the truth, instead of admitting it was an accident, instead of being honest, the boys lied. They blamed Trent Boyette for everything. Cartman was the ringleader of this lie. He was the one who pushed the hardest to blame Trent. When the cops asked questions, Cartman pointed the finger. Trent told the truth. He said it was an accident and that all the boys were involved. But the cops believed the group over the individual. Trent was sent to juvenile hall while Cartman, Stan, Kyle, and Kenny walked free. Trent has been in juvie ever since. Years of his life spent behind bars for something that was not entirely his fault. And now he is getting out. And he is coming for the boys who framed him. This is karma for something Cartman did as a small child. It is one of the earliest examples in the timeline of Cartman's life where he chose to sacrifice someone else to save himself. He was not even old enough to fully understand what he was doing, but the instinct was already there. Blame someone else. Protect yourself. Let them suffer the consequences. This pattern would define Cartman for the rest of the series. Trent Boyette returns to South Park as a much bigger, much stronger, much angrier kid. He spent years in juvenile detention getting tougher while the boys lived comfortable lives. He wants revenge. He wants the boys to admit what they did, and they are terrified because they know Trent is right. They framed an innocent kid and ruined years of his life. The boys try everything to stop Trent. They run from him. They hide from him. They even try to get Butters to protect them since Butters tried to warn them not to start the fire in the first place. But Trent finds them anyway. The consequences of their preschool lie have been chasing them for years, and the consequences have finally caught up. The episode does not give the boys an easy resolution. Trent confronts them. The situation escalates. Miss Claridge, who survived the fire but was permanently disabled and now communicates through a mechanical wheelchair, becomes involved again. The boys are forced to reckon with what they did, though being South Park, the reckoning does not lead to any permanent growth. The karma here is about time. What Cartman did in preschool sat dormant for years. He probably forgot about it. He probably never thought about Trent Boyette sitting in juvie for something the boys all did together. But the consequence did not forget about him. It waited. It grew. And when it came back bigger and angrier and more dangerous than it was when it left. This is a theme that runs through all of Cartman's karma. The things he does have consequences, and those consequences do not always arrive immediately. Sometimes they take years. Sometimes they come from directions he never expected, but they always come. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the time Cartman destroyed the only genuine relationship he ever had. This karma stretches across 2 full seasons of the show, seasons 20 and 21. It aired between 2016 and 2017. And it is different from every other karma moment on this list because this one is not about a scheme blowing up or a punishment being delivered. This one is about Cartman destroying something real, something that could have saved him. During season 20, South Park experimented with a heavily serialized format. Instead of standalone episodes, the entire season told one continuous story with multiple interweaving plotlines. One of those plotlines involved Cartman entering a relationship with Heidi Turner, a girl from his class. Heidi had quit social media after a trolling incident. She deleted all her accounts and stepped away from the internet entirely. In this vulnerable state, she crossed paths with Cartman, who was also going through changes. Cartman appeared to be evolving. He was saying things that sounded almost sensitive. He was showing interest in another person's feelings. He was behaving in ways that seemed, for the first time in the entire series, genuinely human. Fans were stunned. The show seemed to be asking a radical question. What if Cartman could actually change? What if a relationship with someone who cared about him could break the cycle of narcissism and cruelty? For most of season 20, the Cartman and Heidi relationship was played straight. It was sweet. It was hopeful. It seemed like Cartman might actually be growing as a person. Season 21 destroyed that hope completely. As the relationship continued, the truth emerged. Cartman was not changing, he was adapting, he was not becoming a better person, he was learning new tools for manipulation. Heidi was not fixing him, he was breaking her. Over the course of season 21, Heidi begins to change. She gains weight, she becomes meaner, she starts adopting Cartman's worldview. She becomes more cynical, more aggressive, more willing to put other people down. The sweet girl who quit social media to protect her mental health is slowly transforming into a version of Cartman. She is absorbing his toxicity like a sponge. The other kids notice. Kyle especially notices. He tries to warn Heidi. He tries to tell her that Cartman is poison. But Heidi pushes Kyle away. She defends Cartman. She makes excuses for him. This is a pattern that the show depicts with uncomfortable accuracy. People in toxic relationships often defend their abuser. They internalize the abuse and redirect their anger at the people trying to help them. Heidi tells Kyle to shut up and says he sounds like his mother. The crowd laughs at Kyle. Cartman and Heidi make up. The cycle continues. The fighting between Cartman and Heidi becomes public and violent. They argue in the school hallways. They punch each other. Their relationship becomes entertainment for the other students who gather to watch them fight like it is a spectacle. The show is depicting a toxic relationship in real time. And it is deeply uncomfortable because everyone can see what is happening except the 2 people inside it. Eventually, by the end of season 21, Heidi reaches her breaking point. She sees what she has become. She recognizes that Cartman's influence has turned her into someone she does not want to be. She musters the strength to leave. She breaks up with Cartman and walks away from the relationship. Cartman is left alone. And this is where the karma hits. Not with a punch, not with a lawsuit, not with a humiliating revelation. The karma is the loss itself. Cartman had something real. He had a person who voluntarily chose to be with him. Not someone he tricked, not someone he manipulated into compliance, someone who, at least initially, genuinely liked him and saw potential in him. And he destroyed it. He could not stop being Cartman. He could not resist the urge to manipulate and control. He could not let another person exist in his life as an equal. He had to dominate. He had to reshape her into what he wanted her to be. And when the reshaping was complete, he had created a monster in his own image. And even that monster did not want to be with him. The Heidi relationship arc is the most mature karma South Park has ever delivered. It does not rely on physical comedy or absurd situations. It relies on emotional truth. The scariest thing about Cartman is not that he feeds people their parents or starts hate movements or fakes medical conditions. The scariest thing is that he is incapable of love. Not because he does not feel it, he might, but because every feeling he has gets filtered through his need for control. And that filter corrupts everything it touches. He turns love into possession. He turns partnership into domination. He turns vulnerability into a weapon. Heidi escaped. She got out. But the version of herself that Cartman created took time to undo. The damage he caused to her personality and self-image was real, and recovering from it was a process that the show acknowledged. Cartman did not just lose a girlfriend. He proved to the audience and to himself that he is fundamentally incapable of maintaining a healthy human connection. That is the loneliest karma imaginable. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the time karma gave Cartman a taste of his own medicine in the most literal way possible. This one comes from Season 12, Episode 1. The episode is called Tonsil Trouble, and it aired in 2008. It is a darkly funny episode that starts with a medical procedure and ends with Cartman getting a form of karma that is simultaneously hilarious and deeply unsettling. The episode begins with Cartman getting his tonsils removed. It is supposed to be a routine surgery. But something goes wrong at the hospital. Due to a mix-up, Cartman is accidentally given a blood transfusion that contains HIV-positive blood. Cartman contracts HIV. Not from any behavior of his own, not from any scheme gone wrong, just a random hospital error. When Kyle finds out, his reaction is immediate and visceral. He laughs. Kyle laughs at Cartman having HIV. This is completely out of character for Kyle, who is usually the moral compass of the group. But Kyle has suffered so much at Cartman's hands over the years that he cannot help himself. Seeing something genuinely bad happen to the person who has made his life miserable feels like cosmic justice. It feels like karma. Cartman is not laughing. For once in his life, he is scared. He is genuinely afraid of what this diagnosis means. He comes to school and begs for sympathy, but nobody wants to hear it. The other kids either do not care or find it funny. Kyle's laughter especially bothers Cartman. It makes him furious. It makes him want revenge. And this is where Cartman proves that even when karma hits him, he cannot respond like a normal person. Instead of processing his fear, instead of seeking treatment, instead of accepting the support of the people around him, Cartman decides that Kyle needs to share his suffering. If Cartman has HIV, then Kyle should have HIV too. That is Cartman's version of fairness. Cartman sneaks into Kyle's room at night. He collects some of his own infected blood, and he infects Kyle with HIV. He deliberately gives Kyle a deadly disease because Kyle laughed at him. Think about the proportional response here. Kyle laughed. Cartman gave him HIV. That is the gap between a normal person's reaction and Cartman's reaction. It is an ocean. The two of them, now both HIV positive, end up on a bizarre adventure to find a cure. They visit Magic Johnson, the basketball legend who has famously lived with HIV for decades. The show presents a satirical theory about how Magic Johnson has survived so long, and the boys end up finding a treatment. In the end, Cartman survives without learning anything. Kyle carries the emotional weight of the entire experience. It is unfair, it is messy, and it is perfectly Cartman. He got HIV through no fault of his own, which could have been a moment for the character to experience genuine vulnerability and growth. Instead, he weaponized his own illness against the person who laughed at him. He turned his victimhood into a tool for revenge. Even his suffering becomes a weapon. The karma in this episode is not in the HIV itself. That was random bad luck. The karma is in what the HIV reveals about Cartman. When something bad happens to a normal person, they seek help. They lean on their friends. They process the emotion. When something bad happens to Cartman, his first instinct is to make sure someone else suffers more. His response to pain is always to create more pain. And that response guarantees that he will never receive genuine sympathy from anyone, which guarantees that the next time something bad happens to him, nobody will care. It is a self-reinforcing cycle of isolation, and Cartman is the architect of it. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have one of the most satisfying visual gags in the entire series. The time Cartman became a crime lord and the universe reminded him who he really is. This comes from Season 14, Episode 3. The episode is called Medicinal Fried Chicken, and it aired in 2010. It is a hilarious parody of the 1983 film Scarface starring Al Pacino, and it represents one of the most elaborate examples of Cartman getting in over his head. The episode begins when the KFC in South Park gets replaced by a medical marijuana dispensary. Colorado has made medicinal marijuana legal, and the local KFC is shut down to make room for the new business. This is devastating to Cartman. KFC is his favorite food in the world. He is genuinely addicted to it. The idea of losing access to fried chicken is a crisis of existential proportions for him. When Cartman and his mother try to get KFC from a neighboring town, they discover that KFC has been made illegal across the entire state of Colorado. This is the show's satirical twist. Instead of marijuana being the illegal substance, Kentucky Fried Chicken is the contraband. And Cartman, driven by his addiction, does what any self-respecting addict would do. He turns to the black market. Cartman builds an illegal KFC operation modeled exactly on Tony Montana's cocaine empire from Scarface. He adopts Montana's mannerisms, he speaks with a Cuban accent, he recruits minions, he sets up distribution networks, he meets with rival dealers, he threatens competitors. The show recreates iconic scenes from Scarface shot by shot, with Cartman in Al Pacino's role and buckets of fried chicken replacing the mountains of cocaine. For a while, it works. Cartman becomes a genuine crime lord. He is running the most profitable illegal fried chicken operation in Colorado. He has money, he has power, he has respect from the criminal underworld. It is Cartman living out his Scarface fantasy, and the show commits to the bit completely. But just like Tony Montana, Cartman's empire is built on a foundation that cannot last. The operation gets too big, the risks get too high, the paranoia sets in, and eventually the same forces that brought Montana down bring Cartman down too. The crime lord fantasy collapses under its own weight. Cartman's fried chicken empire crumbles, and he is left with nothing but the lingering smell of 11 herbs and spices and the realization that he is not, in fact, Tony Montana. He is a 9-year-old kid from Colorado who cannot control his appetite. Meanwhile, in the other plotline of the episode, Randy Marsh deliberately gives himself testicular cancer by microwaving his genitals so he can qualify for a medical marijuana card. His testicles grow to enormous size and he bounces around town on them like exercise balls. The show contrasts Randy's willingness to destroy his own body for marijuana with Cartman's willingness to become a crime lord for fried chicken. Both characters take absurdly extreme measures to satisfy an addiction, and both end up worse off than when they started. The karma for Cartman in this episode is the gap between who he thinks he is and who he actually is. In his mind, he is Scarface. He is a criminal mastermind. He is a powerful figure who commands respect and fear. In reality, he is a child whose illegal empire is built on chicken. The show lets Cartman have his fantasy and then reminds him and the audience that no amount of cosplay changes the fundamental truth. He is still Eric Cartman, he is still a kid, and when the fantasy ends, reality is waiting. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you are enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have a few more rapid-fire karma moments that deserve mention before we wrap this up. There are so many moments across 28 seasons where Cartman gets what he deserves that we could not cover every single one in full detail. But these next few moments deserve attention because they each represent a different flavor of karma. Some are quick, some are slow, some are physical, some are psychological. But all of them are deeply satisfying. Let us talk about Christian Rockhard from Season 7, Episode 9. This episode aired in 2003 and it features one of the most perfectly constructed Cartman schemes and one of the most perfectly constructed Cartman failures in the entire show. Cartman makes a bet with Kyle that he can get a platinum record before Kyle's band can. Kyle's band, Moop, plays actual rock music. Cartman's strategy is to game the system. Cartman forms a Christian rock band called Faith Plus One. He does not write original songs. He takes existing love songs and replaces every reference to a romantic partner with the word Jesus. Every love lyric becomes a worship lyric. Baby becomes Jesus. Darling becomes my Lord. The songs become increasingly suggestive because Cartman does not understand the difference between romantic love and spiritual devotion. The lyrics start sounding like Cartman is in a physical relationship with Jesus Christ. The audience at Christian music events loves it. They think Faith Plus One is the most passionate worship band they have ever heard. The band sells millions of albums. They become the biggest name in Christian rock. Cartman is on the verge of winning his bet with Kyle. But here is where the karma arrives. Christian music does not award platinum records. The Christian music industry uses a different system. Instead of gold and platinum, they give out gold and frankincense and myrrh. These are references to the gifts the three wise men brought to baby Jesus. Cartman needs a platinum record to win the bet, but platinum records do not exist in Christian music. When Cartman discovers this at the award ceremony, he loses his mind. He screams obscenities. He curses God. He curses Jesus. He has a complete meltdown on stage at a Christian music event in front of thousands of devoted Christian fans who bought his albums and supported his band. The audience is horrified. Tolkien, his bandmate, snaps and beats him up. Butters farts on him and gives him the finger. The band breaks up. Kyle did not win either because his band went on strike, but Cartman definitively lost. The karma is in the structure of the scheme itself. Cartman tried to cheat his way to a music award by exploiting religious people's devotion. He took something sacred to millions of people and turned it into a cynical money-making operation. And the system he tried to exploit had a built-in protection against exactly what he was doing. The Christian music industry does not give out the same awards as secular music. Cartman did all the work, made all the sales, won all the fans, and got nothing he actually wanted because he never bothered to understand the rules of the game he was playing. Now let us talk about the time in Season 8, Episode 13. The episode is called Cartman's Incredible Gift, and it aired in 2004. Cartman tries to fly by jumping off the roof of his house. He is inspired by a magic show and genuinely believes he can achieve flight through willpower alone. He jumps. He does not fly. He falls and suffers a near-fatal head injury. At the hospital, Cartman wakes up and starts making random guesses about a serial killer case the local police are investigating. The killer cuts off the left hand of each victim. The South Park police, who are famously incompetent throughout the entire series, decide that Cartman's random guesses must be psychic visions caused by his head trauma. Cartman immediately monetizes this. He sets himself up as a psychic detective, charging money for his services. He makes completely random predictions, and the police follow them as if they are gospel truth. Cartman leads the police to arrest innocent people, while the actual killer walks around in plain sight. Nobody notices because they are so enamored with Cartman's supposed psychic powers that they ignore actual evidence right in front of them. The karma comes when the real serial killer gets tired of being ignored. He kidnaps Cartman. Suddenly, the fake psychic is face-to-face with a real murderer who wants to add him to the collection. Cartman's fraud put him in genuine danger. He pretended to be able to find killers, and the killer found him instead. The boy who was making money off of fake predictions gets confronted with a very real threat that his fake powers cannot protect him from. Then there is the human centipede from Season 15, Episode 1, which aired in 2011. This episode is a parody of both Apple's iTunes terms of service and the horror film, The Human Centipede. The Cartman storyline in this episode is not about a scheme. It is about a tantrum. And it is one of the most horrifyingly funny tantrums in the show. Cartman wants an iPad. His mother says no. She tells him she cannot afford the most expensive tablet in the store. Cartman's response is to have a public meltdown in the middle of Best Buy. He screams at his mother. He accuses her of mistreating him. He bends over and tells everyone in the store that his mother is violating him. He makes a scene so extreme, so disproportionate, so loudly and publicly humiliating that shoppers stop and stare. His mother stands there, mortified, unable to control her son. This is not a scheme. This is not a calculated plan. This is pure Cartman ID. He wants something. He cannot have it. And his response to not getting what he wants is to burn down every social norm around him until someone gives in. The karma is that this scene, which the show presents without apology, strips Cartman of any remaining dignity. There is no clever manipulation here, no mastermind at work, just a spoiled child screaming in an electronics store because his mother will not buy him a tablet. It is the most pathetic version of Cartman, and the show holds the camera on him without blinking. Let us also talk about a smaller moment that packs a significant punch. In Season 5, Episode 3, called Super Best Friends, which aired in 2001, there is a moment near the end of the episode where Stan and Kyle are reconciling after a conflict. Cartman sees this genuine display of friendship between two people who care about each other and immediately tries to mock it. He makes a sarcastic comment in a fake sweet voice about how nice it is that they are friends again. He asks them if they want to get a room to make out. Stan and Kyle's response is immediate and physical. They both kick Cartman in the testicles, not once, repeatedly. They kick him in the crotch over and over again while laughing. It is quick, it is visceral, it is not part of an elaborate plot. It is just two kids who are tired of a bully ruining every nice moment they have, delivering swift and direct consequences. This is the simplest form of karma on this entire list. No schemes, no long games, no ironic twists. Just a kid being mean and two other kids kicking him for it. And sometimes that is the most satisfying karma of all. Not every lesson needs to be elaborate. Sometimes the universe just needs to deliver a swift kick. There is also a moment worth mentioning from the show's very first episode. Season 1, Episode 1, Cartman gets an anal probe, which aired on August 13th, 1997. This is where it all began, the very first episode of South Park. And even in this pilot, before anyone knew what Cartman would become, the show established the fundamental truth about this character. Bad things happen to him because of who he is. In the pilot, Cartman keeps having vivid dreams about aliens. He dismisses them as dreams. But they are not dreams. Aliens have actually been visiting him. They implanted a device inside his body through an anal probe. Throughout the episode, Cartman experiences strange symptoms. Things come out of his body that should not be there. His friends try to tell him that aliens are real and they have been probing him, but Cartman refuses to believe it. He is in denial because admitting the truth would mean admitting he is vulnerable, and Cartman never admits vulnerability. The episode ends with the aliens returning and the probe activating in spectacular fashion. Cartman's body becomes the vehicle for an alien communication device that shoots beams out of his rear end. It is crude, it is juvenile, it is exactly what South Park is. And it establishes on day one that Eric Cartman is a character who will suffer. The universe has been doing things to Cartman since the very first episode. The probing was just the beginning. Everything after that, every scheme that failed, every punishment that landed, every karma moment we have discussed in this video was just the universe continuing what it started on August 13th, 1997. And that brings us to the bigger picture. We have walked through over 24 moments across 28 seasons of South Park, where Eric Cartman got what was coming to him. We have seen Wendy beat him on the playground. We have seen his amusement park dream collapse under its own greed. We have seen him tricked into thinking he is a ginger and learning nothing from it. We have seen his friends ignore him so completely that he thought he was dead. We have seen a dog trainer break him down to his fundamental nature. We have seen his own robot scheme become his prison. We have seen the revelation that he killed his own father. We have seen his superhero team vote him out unanimously. We have seen him go to jail for kidnapping Butters over a restaurant visit. We have seen his fake medical condition become real. We have seen him exploit the legal system until it collapsed around him. We have seen a kid he framed in preschool come back for revenge years later. We have seen him destroy the only genuine relationship he ever had. We have seen him weaponize his own HIV diagnosis. We have seen his crime empire crumble over fried chicken. We have seen his Christian rock band fall apart at the finish line. We have seen him fall off a roof trying to fly. We have seen him scream at his mother in Best Buy. And we have seen him get kicked in the crotch for being a jerk. That is a lot of karma. That is nearly 3 decades of consequences. And yet, Eric Cartman keeps going. He never changes, he never learns, he never grows. Every karma moment resets to 0, and the cycle starts over. The universe keeps trying to teach him the lesson, and he keeps refusing to learn it. And that, when you really think about it, is the ultimate karma of all. It is not any single moment. It is the pattern itself. Cartman is trapped in a loop of his own design. He does something terrible. He faces consequences. He ignores the consequences. He does something terrible again. The loop repeats. It has been repeating since 1997. It will probably repeat until the show ends, which at this point might not be until 2030, given that the creators signed a deal guaranteeing South Park through at least that year. Cartman will never escape this loop because escaping it would require self-awareness. And self-awareness is the one thing Cartman cannot develop. He can manipulate. He can scheme. He can plan. He can calculate. He can predict what other people will do with terrifying accuracy. But he cannot look inward. He cannot see himself the way others see him. He cannot ask the question that would change everything. Why does this keep happening to me? He never asks that question, and because he never asks it, he never gets the answer. And because he never gets the answer, he keeps doing the same things. And because he keeps doing the same things, the karma keeps coming. It is an infinite loop of cruelty and consequence, and Cartman is both the architect and the prisoner. South Park understands this. The show has never pretended that Cartman will change. It has never given him a permanent redemption arc. It has never suggested that underneath the hatred and the narcissism and the manipulation, there is a good person waiting to emerge. The show's position, stated through 28 seasons and counting, is that some people are just like this. They cannot be fixed. They can only be endured. But the show also gives us the karma. It gives us Wendy's fists. It gives us Kyle's laughter. It gives us the collapsing theme park and the unanimous vote and the week in juvie. It gives us these moments because they are what make Cartman bearable. Without the karma, Cartman would just be a villain. With it, he becomes something more complicated and more entertaining. He becomes a character who the universe constantly tries to correct and who constantly resists the correction. He is a force of nature crashing against the immovable object of consequences, and that is why we keep watching. Not because we expect Cartman to change, but because we want to see what happens the next time karma comes knocking. We want to see the next scheme fail, the next punishment land, the next moment where the universe says enough. Because with Eric Cartman, there is always a next time. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Check out our other long-form content, and we will see you in the next one. Actually, before we wrap this up entirely, there are several more karma moments that deserve a deeper look. These are moments that fans bring up constantly in discussions about Cartman getting what he deserves, and skipping them would be doing a disservice to the legacy of cosmic justice that this character has accumulated over the years. Let us go back to Season 4, Episode 6. The episode is called Cherokee Hair Tampons, and it aired in the year 2000. This is an episode where Cartman does not get karma in the traditional sense. Instead, the episode reveals just how selfish Cartman is. And the universe responds by forcing the issue in the most direct way possible. Kyle is dying, his kidneys are failing, he has had diabetes his whole life, and now his organs are shutting down. The doctors say that Kyle needs a kidney transplant or he will die. The only compatible donor in all of South Park, the only person with the right blood type who can save Kyle's life, is Eric Cartman. Stan goes to Cartman and asks him to donate a kidney. A normal person, when told that their classmate will die without their help, would at least consider it. Most people would agree. It is one kidney, you have two. The other kid gets to live. But Cartman is not most people. Cartman demands $10 million for his kidney. He sees Kyle's imminent death not as a tragedy, but as a business opportunity. He has something Kyle needs, and he's going to charge the maximum possible price for it. Stan, Kenny, Butters, and Timmy try to take matters into their own hands. They sneak into Cartman's house at night to remove his kidney while he sleeps. They make it past his cat, Fluffy. They get close. But Cartman, paranoid as always, is wearing a device called the Kidney Blocker 2000 strapped to his body. Even in his sleep, Cartman is protecting his assets from people who might take them. The episode resolves with Kyle getting the kidney he needs, though not from Cartman. The karma here is not a punishment delivered to Cartman. The karma is the audience's realization of what Cartman truly is. He would let a child die rather than give up something he does not even need. He would let someone he sees every day at school, someone who sits next to him in class, someone who has been part of his life since kindergarten, die of organ failure because Cartman values money more than human life. And he does this without any hesitation, without any moral struggle, Without any moment of doubt, it is not a hard decision for Cartman. It is not a decision at all. The answer was always no. This episode does not punish Cartman directly, but it exposes him. And exposure, as we have seen throughout this video, is its own form of karma. Every person in South Park now knows that Cartman would let a child die for money. Every parent, every teacher, every kid at school. They all saw it. They all know what he is. And they will never be able to pretend they do not know. Now let us talk about Season 10, Episode 8, Make Love, Not Warcraft. This episode aired in 2006 and it won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Animated Program. It has a 9.5 out of 10 on IMDb, making it the second highest rated episode in the entire series. The episode follows the boys as they play World of Warcraft, the massively multiplayer online role-playing game. They are having fun playing together, going on quests, leveling up their characters. But then they encounter a rogue player. This player is massively overpowered. He is at a much higher level than anyone else in the game, and he kills the boys' characters over and over again without their consent. In the game, you are supposed to agree to a duel before fighting another player. This rogue player ignores that rule. He just kills everyone. The rogue player is depicted as a stereotypical nerd. He is extremely overweight. He sits in a dark room surrounded by food wrappers and soda cans. He has no life outside the game. He plays constantly, endlessly, killing other players for no reason other than the pleasure of ruining their fun. The boys call the World of Warcraft support line at Blizzard Entertainment to complain. The representatives acknowledge the problem but seem unable to stop it. The boys decide to take matters into their own hands. They devise a plan to level up their characters enough to fight the rogue player. But to do this, they need to grind for weeks. They play the game non-stop. They skip school, they stop exercising, they stop showering, they eat nothing but junk food delivered to their computers. Over the course of the episode, the boys physically deteriorate. They gain weight, they develop acne, their posture collapses. They become the very thing they are trying to defeat, sedentary gamers who have sacrificed their real lives for a virtual one. Cartman is the driving force behind this effort. He is the one who rallies the group. He is the one who insists they keep grinding. He is the one who declares that they must defeat this player at any cost. And the cost is their health, their social lives, and their connection to the real world. The boys do eventually defeat the rogue player in an epic battle sequence that parodies Lord of the Rings. Stan's father, Randy, who has been secretly playing the game on his own, sacrifices his character to help the boys win. The rogue player looks at his screen in disbelief as his overpowered character is finally killed. The boys celebrate their victory. They are heroes in the game. They saved World of Warcraft. And then Stan asks the obvious question, what do they do now that the rogue player is defeated? Cartman's answer is perfect. He says they can finally play the game. The whole point of defeating the enemy was so they could sit at their computers and keep playing a video game. They sacrificed their health and their lives to earn the right to continue doing the thing that destroyed their health and their lives. It is a perfect circle of futility. The karma here is not dramatic. Nobody punches Cartman, nobody tricks him. The karma is the irony of the situation itself. Cartman and the boys won, they achieved their goal. But their goal was meaningless. They fought so hard for something that does not matter. They lost real things, health, relationships, time, to gain virtual things that have no value outside a screen. Cartman is often presented as someone who fights hard for what he wants. This episode asks the question, what happens when what he wants is not worth having? Let us also revisit something from the Imagination Land trilogy, which spanned Season 11, Episodes 10, 11, and 12. These aired in 2007. The trilogy is an epic, movie-length storyline about a portal to a dimension where every imaginary character ever conceived by humanity lives. It involves terrorism, government cover-ups, nuclear weapons, and a war between good and evil imaginary characters. It later got re-released as a direct-to-video movie called Imagination Land the Movie, which won an Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program. But amid all the epic fantasy and geopolitical satire, there is a very simple bet between Cartman and Kyle that drives one of the main plot lines. Cartman bet Kyle that leprechauns are real. If Cartman wins the bet, Kyle has to do something extremely degrading. If Kyle wins, the stakes are similarly high. Throughout the trilogy, Cartman is obsessed with collecting on this bet. He does not care about the fate of Imagination Land. He does not care about the war between good and evil imaginary beings. He does not care that the government is considering nuking an entire dimension. The only thing Cartman cares about is making Kyle pay up on their bet. He takes the issue to court. He hires a lawyer, he stands before a judge and argues his case with the same passion and determination that a real lawyer would bring to a death penalty case. The bet means more to Cartman than the survival of imagination itself. He would let every imaginary character die. He would let the entire concept of human creativity be destroyed as long as Kyle honors their agreement. The judge ultimately rules in a way that neither boy expected, and the trilogy resolves with the restoration of Imagination Land. But Cartman's fixation on the bet at the expense of everything else reveals the smallness of his priorities. The universe presents him with infinite possibilities, imaginary worlds, heroic adventures, the chance to save reality itself. And all Cartman sees is a chance to humiliate Kyle. His world is so narrow, his concerns so petty, that even when presented with the infinite, he can only focus on the personal. That narrowness is itself a punishment. It is karma that Cartman will never recognize because recognizing it would require exactly the kind of perspective he lacks. The universe keeps offering him opportunities to be part of something bigger than himself, and he keeps choosing smallness. He keeps choosing pettiness. He keeps choosing the bet over the adventure. There is one more moment that deserves special attention before we close this out for real. It is not a single episode. It is a pattern that emerges across the entire series when you watch enough of it. And that pattern is this: Cartman's schemes almost always work in the short term. He is genuinely clever. He can manipulate adults. He can read people. He can plan multiple moves ahead. His Scott Tenorman revenge was brilliant in its construction. His presidential election on the school playground was masterfully political. His illegal KFC empire was organized with genuine business acumen. In the short term, Cartman is often the smartest person in the room, but in the long term, he always loses. The amusement park falls apart. The band cannot get a platinum record. The robot costume becomes a prison. The fake disease becomes real. The girlfriend walks away. The superhero team kicks him out. The legal system collapses. Short-term intelligence without long-term wisdom is its own form of punishment. Cartman can win any battle, but he cannot win the war because winning the war would require him to be someone he is fundamentally incapable of being. A person who considers consequences beyond the immediate moment. A person who thinks about how his actions affect other people. A person who can look beyond his own desires and see the bigger picture. He cannot do any of that. He has never been able to do any of that. And so the karma keeps coming, not as a single devastating blow, but as a slow, grinding, endless series of collapses that reset his progress to zero every single time. He builds empires and watches them fall. He makes plans and watches them backfire. He forms alliances and watches them shatter. And then he does it all over again. The same mistakes, the same consequences, the same refusal to learn. 28 seasons, 338 episodes, nearly 3 decades of television. And Eric Cartman is exactly where he started. A selfish, manipulative, cruel child standing at a bus stop in a small Colorado town, waiting for the next opportunity to do something terrible and the next inevitable moment when the universe decides to do something terrible right back. That is the real karma. Not any single moment. The whole thing. The entire arc of Eric Cartman's life is a karma delivery system. He is a character defined by consequences, surrounded by consequences, shaped by consequences, and completely immune to learning from consequences. He is the most punished character in the history of animated television, and he has earned every single moment of it. And that is every time Cartman got instant karma on South Park. If you enjoyed this breakdown, drop a subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this with another South Park fan who needs to fall asleep to the sweet sound of Cartman getting what he deserves. We will see you in the next one. Good night. Actually, there are 2 more moments that we simply cannot leave out of this video. They are too good and too satisfying. The first comes from Season 16, Episode 7. The episode is called Cartman Finds Love, and it aired in 2012. The title makes it sound like Cartman gets a girlfriend, but that is not what happens at all. What happens is far more revealing, and the karma is delivered in a way that shows Cartman's racism backfiring directly into his face. A new girl named Nicole transfers to South Park Elementary. She is black, and the moment Cartman sees her, his brain does what Cartman's brain always does. It sorts people into categories based on race. Cartman decides that Nicole must date Tolkien Black, the only other black student in the class. In Cartman's worldview, black people should only date black people. This is not a belief he hides. He states it openly. He considers it obvious and natural. The problem for Cartman is that Nicole does not like Tolkien. She likes Kyle. She is interested in Kyle. Kyle is interested in her. They have chemistry. They are starting to form a genuine connection. And Cartman cannot allow this because it violates his racial categorization system. So Cartman launches a campaign to break up Kyle and Nicole before they even get together. He tells the whole school that he and Kyle are a gay couple. He fabricates an entire romantic relationship between himself and Kyle to make Nicole think Kyle is unavailable. He starts sending gifts to Nicole and Tolkien under fake names to push them together. He even manifests a tiny Cupid version of himself, Cupid Cartman, who floats around and shoots love arrows while Cartman talks to him like a confidant. The scheme works temporarily. Nicole and Kyle drift apart. Nicole starts spending time with Tolkien. Cartman appears to have won. His racial matchmaking was successful. But the karma catches up to him in the form of the lie he told. By publicly declaring that he and Kyle are in a romantic relationship, Cartman created a narrative that takes on a life of its own. The school believes it, other kids believe it, the adults believe it. And Cartman, who is violently homophobic, is now publicly identified as being in a gay relationship with the person he hates most in the world. He tried to use homosexuality as a weapon against Kyle. He tried to use it to manipulate the social dynamics of the school. And the weapon turned around and attached itself to him. The label he tried to put on Kyle stuck to Cartman instead. He spent the whole episode trying to control who dates whom based on his racist worldview, and the consequence was that his own social identity got rewritten in a way he never intended. The second moment comes from Season 13, Episode 2. The episode is called The Coon, and it aired in 2009. This is the episode that introduced Cartman's superhero alter ego, before the larger Coon trilogy we discussed earlier. And it is a masterclass in karma through irrelevance. Cartman creates the Coon because he wants to be a superhero. He wants to be feared and respected. He wants the city of South Park to look up to him as their protector. He patrols the streets at night wearing his raccoon costume. He attacks men who are kissing their girlfriends in the park because he assumes they are rapists. He goes to the police station and tries to file reports. The police tell him to leave. He leaves behind a box of promotional t-shirts that say, "Who is the Coon?" The officers pick up the shirts in confusion. The next day at school, Cartman tries to get his friends excited about the Coon. Nobody cares. Nobody has heard of the Coon. Nobody is interested. Cartman gives a speech at school about the Coon. Nobody listens. He announces that the Coon will appear on the roof of the local Walgreens that night for a public meet and greet. Nobody shows up. And then a real superhero appears. Another kid in South Park has created a vigilante identity called Mysterion. Unlike the Coon, Mysterion actually helps people. He stops actual crimes, he protects actual victims, he earns actual respect from the community. The police welcome Mysterion. The news covers Mysterion. The public loves Mysterion. Everything Cartman wanted for the Coon, Mysterion gets. And Cartman gets nothing. Cartman is furious. He accuses Mysterion of being a copycat. He demands recognition. He throws himself a convention called Coonican at the airport Hilton, where he sits alone at a table waiting for fans who never arrive. A waiter asks if the Coon is Cartman. Cartman denies it. The waiter is relieved because he thought Cartman was a terrible person. Even in his superhero disguise, Cartman cannot escape his own reputation. The karma here is pure neglect. Nobody attacks Cartman, nobody sabotages him, nobody even tries to stop him. They just do not care. The Coon is not defeated by a villain. The Coon is defeated by indifference. Cartman wanted to be a hero, and the world responded with a shrug. He wanted adoration and received nothing. He wanted to matter, and the universe told him through silence that he does not. This is arguably the cruelest form of karma in the entire series. Physical beatings heal. Lost money can be re-earned. Humiliation fades. But irrelevance is permanent, in a way that nothing else is. When the world looks at you and decides you are not worth paying attention to, that is not a punishment you can fight or scheme your way out of. There is no manipulation clever enough to make people care about something they have decided is boring. Cartman's entire identity is built on being the center of attention, and in this episode, the center belongs to someone else. Mysterion earns what Cartman demands. That is the lesson the universe keeps trying to teach Cartman across all 28 seasons. You do not get respect by demanding it. You do not get love by manipulating it. You do not get attention by screaming for it. These things are earned through genuine action, through actually helping people, through being someone worth paying attention to. And Cartman cannot do any of those things because doing them would require him to care about someone other than himself. This is the final piece of the karma puzzle. Every moment we have discussed in this video, every beating, every lost fortune, every exposure, every rejection, every ruined relationship, every collapsed scheme, they all come back to the same root cause. Cartman does not care about other people. He cannot empathize. He cannot love without possessing. He cannot cooperate without dominating. He cannot participate without controlling. And a person like that, no matter how smart they are, no matter how creative or determined or ambitious, will always end up alone. They will always end up being ignored. They will always end up sitting at a convention table in an empty hotel ballroom, wearing a homemade costume, wondering why nobody showed up. That is the karma. Not a moment, a life. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you have not already. Sweet dreams. And if you're still listening, still awake, or maybe just starting to drift off, here is one last thought about Eric Cartman and the nature of karma on South Park. The show has been on the air since 1997. That is older than most of the people watching this video. It has survived the transition from VHS to DVD to streaming. It has survived the rise and fall of multiple television eras. It has survived controversies that would have killed any other show. It has been banned in China. It has been protested by the Catholic League. It has received death threats over neat depictions of religious figures. Episodes have been pulled from streaming platforms, and through all of it, the show has continued. In July 2025, creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone signed a $1.5 billion extension deal with Paramount Global, guaranteeing the show will continue through at least 2029 or 2030, with 50 new episodes to come. And Eric Cartman will be in every single one of them. Still scheming, still manipulating, still saying the worst things imaginable, and still getting karma delivered directly to his doorstep. The genius of the show is that it never pretends the karma fixes anything. Other shows would have Cartman learn a lesson, other shows would give him a redemption arc, other shows would soften him over time, filing down the edges until he becomes palatable. South Park refuses to do this. The show's position is clear and has been consistent for nearly 30 years. Cartman is who he is. He will not change. He cannot change. And the karma exists not to change him, but to give the audience and the other characters a release valve. A moment of justice in a world where justice is rare and satisfaction is temporary. Think about the structure of a typical Cartman karma episode. He does something terrible. The episode builds tension as his scheme progresses. The audience gets frustrated watching him succeed because we know he does not deserve it. And then the karma hits. The scheme collapses, the punishment arrives, the universe corrects itself. And for one beautiful moment, everything is right with the world. Then the next episode starts, and Cartman is back to being Cartman. The karma is gone, the lesson is forgotten, the cycle begins again. This should be frustrating. In any other show, it would be. But in South Park, it is the point. The show is not about characters growing and changing. It is about human nature being immutable. It is about the fact that some people will always be who they are, and the best the rest of us can do is enjoy the moments when they get what is coming to them. Eric Cartman is the most karmic character in television history, not because he receives more karma than any other character, but because he needs it more. He generates it through his own behavior. He creates the conditions for his own punishment every single time. And he never ever sees it coming, even when the whole audience can see it from a mile away, even when Kyle is pointing at it, even when Stan is warning him. Cartman walks directly into the consequences of his actions with the confidence of a man who has never faced a consequence in his life. And he does this every single time. That is what makes him one of the greatest characters ever written. Not because he is good, because he is endlessly, reliably, magnificently terrible. And the universe, represented by the writers, the other characters, and the fundamental structure of storytelling itself, never lets him get away with it for long. 28 seasons, 338 episodes, hundreds of schemes, hundreds of karma moments, and the score is still the same as it was on day one. Universe 1, Cartman 0, always has been, always will be. Good night. One more thing before you drift off completely. If there is one episode you should watch after listening to this breakdown, make it Cartman Land. Season 5, Episode 6. It is the purest distillation of everything that makes Cartman karma satisfying. A greedy kid buys a dream. The dream requires other people to function. The greedy kid refuses to include other people. The dream collapses. The greedy kid ends up worse than before. And Kyle, who suffered watching Cartman succeed, heals the moment Cartman's world falls apart. It has everything: the greed, the irony, the cosmic justice, the mace to the eyes from his own security guard. And most importantly, it has the lesson that Cartman will never learn and the audience will never forget. You cannot build paradise by yourself. You cannot enjoy something while making sure nobody else can. And if you try, the universe will take it away from you piece by piece until you are standing outside the fence of your own dream, throwing rocks at what used to be yours. That is the South Park promise. Cartman will keep doing terrible things, and the universe will keep finding creative, satisfying, and often hilarious ways to remind him that terrible things have terrible consequences. As long as the show keeps running, as long as Trey Parker and Matt Stone keep writing, as long as there are episodes to be made and stories to be told, Eric Cartman will keep getting instant karma. And we will keep watching. Because there is nothing quite like seeing the worst kid in South Park get exactly what he deserves. Sleep well, and remember, respect his authority or do not. The universe certainly does not.